just start at the back of the bike and work our way forward. Some things you probably don't even think about, but scenarios that can just leave you where you're at.
Yeah. But
as far as the actual bike setup, we're not really going to go over that a lot because talk about is setup in a sense, but I don't think we'll go over every little zip tie, wire tie, every little thing. Just kind of a basic rundown.
Yeah.
Of what to look for, yeah, after a race and
yeah,
everything.
because there's, everybody's got their own opinion on how it works.
Yeah. Do you wash your bikes when you're done, or does somebody else do it?
I wash them myself.
Do you ever lay them on the side, or do you just?
I just put it on a stand and wash it like this.
Okay. Well, I guess it just depends on how much time you're going to spend on it. But if you're going to drive all that way to a race, you might as well make sure the bike's as good as it can be. You know, the last thing you want is to drive 8 hours to a race and something silly happens. But so what I like to do, like whenever we get done racing, I'll just take the bike and then lay it down so you can see underneath it. But I like to wash it.
Which is another reason to pull the skid plate. But
yeah, you're gonna pull it anyway to change your oil, so. Yeah, and it's just, you know, the 2 bolts there, and then there's a 4mm Allen in there. It'll just corrode the bottom of your engine. Looks like crap.
And it can get it hotter.
Yeah. So the foam definitely helps to keep mud from packing in there. And then another good thing to do is when you're washing it, just blow the dirt out of the backside of the radiators and push it out that way. But yeah, so that's how I would wash it. But
and the cover for the filter area.
yeah. So, do you have Shercos, or did you have Shercos?
Mm-hmm. We have Shercos.
So now you can get to the air filter that way. Just pull this cover off, and then
Theirs all have the top of the seat type still.
yeah. So this is
a pain.
This is way better.
They're not a pain when you learn to do them.
Right.
I don't know.
But yeah, then your battery's still down the bottom. And, yeah. I won't go over air filter maintenance, but you get the point of it. We can put it back on stand and we'll just go front to back. But no, just like things to look for, like if you want to look on this side, because rear wheel brakes they're awesome, but this, your banjo bolt goes through there, and these are known to come loose. So, and these tabs can break off right there too, so just keep an eye on that. And then it doesn't hurt to grab a 13mm wrench and just check and make sure that's tight, because you don't want to lose your brakes just for something silly like that. But it don't take nothing to come in here and it can pull that.
What he's saying is when that thing's tight and that line's sticking out, and if you just hit anything just a little bit, it'll hit the line and then it
lose your
loosens
brakes. Yeah.
and then you're done.
I don't know if you got a vacuum bleeder, but like a pneumatic brake bleeder.
We use a syringe.
Okay. Well, I would syringe all the fluid out, put fresh fluid in, and then start back here, and that way you pull all fresh fluid through and get the old stuff out. But I don't know how much y'all race, but we change brake fluid every race. But
Yeah, that's good.
okay. But yeah, that makes a difference. And then like this clevis right here, there's a zip tie on it, and they can come off too, but make sure that zip tie stays on there because it can rock forward and then you lose your brake pin. So
Is that zip tie still on there with the aftermarket spring ones that we put on?
Yeah, it's still on
Well,
there.
you cut it off, you should put it back on, basically.
Well, I don't. They just put one on mine.
Yeah, it should have a zip tie. I always put a zip tie back on that clip anytime I take it off.
yeah. But it's just little stuff like that can go a long way. But yeah, then just checking your brake pads. Do your brakes ever squeak when you all race? Or
I don't know, just front.
Just the front new.
Mhm.
So if you get some brake grease and put it on the back side of the pads, obviously not the part that's touching the rotor, but that'll help and yeah, keep fresh brake fluid. The back's the one we change. That's the one that really gets a lot of it. You can go 3 or 4 races on the front fluid and be okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then how often do you change your chain and sprockets? Just whenever the sprockets start to curl? Yeah.
When we look at the sprockets, they're usually a U. It starts to get pretty big.
Yeah.
That's when,
Have you ever broke a chain?
yes.
You have? Oh man, that's
It's been a
horrible.
while.
But you can
I
look
was
at it.
little, but
If you look at a chain when it's new and you can see how it's real rounded, just a quick glance, like when you got the bike light over on the side, if that starts to get flat, like it'll look flat.
shiny.
It's time to change that chain, but just to prevent it from, snapping during a race. But
What I like to do on one also is like the rollers, you can just take your finger and push under them, them things, they start getting floppy, you know you're past.
yeah, your sprockets still may look decent, especially if you got like an Ironman sprocket on there because they last forever. But that wasn't a pitch for Ironman, but I'm just saying stuff
Yeah.
like they last forever. But your chain probably shot, so.
And while you're back here, check all of that stuff.
Yeah,
I know people like to tweak on their spokes, but I'm more worried about losing my sprocket bolts. and
Yeah,
my
exactly.
rubber bolts.
Yeah, it don't, yeah, it's 13 millimeter wrench and,
Allen.
yeah.
You don't even have to really use the Allen. You
No.
just go through there and just hit it with a 13. Then get the Allen when you find the loose one, but
Yeah, that, and then, your spokes, y'all got like a spoke torque wrench or?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, and so when you do spokes, I'm just telling you, just so you know, or you can do it however you want, but usually like a new wheel, if you go ride it for 2 hours, it's gonna break in and they're gonna get loose. So I always start the valve stem, or if you got a bib in there, just start your in-lock, but like do this one first and then count 1, 2, 3. So every third spoke is what you're doing is your spokes are like that. That way it keeps the wheel pulled straight. So, yeah.
Remember that line?
But if they're not real loose, you can just go through. You never want to do more than a quarter turn at a time.
Okay,
I know this
making
stuff
sure
takes a
you're
lot of
right.
time, but when your wheel's not true, it starts wobbling. It drives you nuts. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But like when they're new, just go through and do a quarter. You can do every spoke. You don't even have to do every third. Just go through every spoke when it's new.
I always just go through, just kind of jog,
Yeah.
and make sure that they're somewhat tight. And then you were talking about when you got the wheel off, because we were talking about the rear axles and stuff, about packing the,
Yeah, so the rubber seal that protects your wheel bearings, well, that's another thing. If you already got a pick set, like some metal
Already
picks.
fixed.
Yeah.
We-
So when you take your, I don't know, next time you change your tires or whatever, pull them spacers out, pull your seal out, like just take a big flat blade screwdriver and just rock it out nicely, and take you a pick, and you can take that cover off the bearing, and then just pack that plumb full of grease,
Re-grease it.
and your bearings will last twice as long if you do that.
yeah, they almost come with none out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you do that, and then just glob grease in there like there's no tomorrow, because there's a gap about that deep between the seal and the hub, and if you pack that full of grease, that's another thing that'll save your wheel bearings.
And the axle grease.
Yeah. So then when you get your spacers greased and your seals greased, and don't have to put a whole lot on there because you're gonna have grease in your hub from packing your seals full, but just put a light coat of grease on your axle just to save it from. It don't take no time for it to start getting rust and stuff on
In my
there.
opinion, y'all gotta pull that axle out with your fingers,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah, if you're beating the piss out of your axle to try to get it out, it's not good. So,
Take sandpaper, wire wheel, something if it's got any corrosion on it, clean it up.
but if you do it when you got a fresh bike,
Guys with lathes put them in the lathe. I don't got one, so.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at ISDE, because we had to do quick wheel changes, we'll actually put the spacers in the lathe and clean the outside of them up so that way when you slide the wheel in, there's nothing there for it to catch. But, yeah, so do y'all leave lights on your bikes?
I do. I've got one on the rear.
So get some dielectric grease, and these are pretty good, but over time as you wash the bike and everything, it'll blow that grease out. So you put some.
Yeah,
Just
it's
that, you don't want to pack
close.
them full because it'll push them pins out of electrical connectors, but that's something. something else. But keep an eye on your exhaust bolts because I just put blue Loctite on them. I put assembly lube on every bolt besides ones that need Loctite, like your subframe, top and bottom bolts, and then your silencer.
Yeah, it's just like all the plastics. I always use an anti-seize, assembly lube or whatever. Because you get one of these stuck in a tank, or I'd rather lose one of them is to have to fight to get one out.
Yeah, have it in there where you then it starts stripping out, spinning in the tank.
Yeah.
Because they got brass inserts in those tanks, which they've been like that for years, so you've seen them plenty of times, but once you spin that brass insert, you're screwed. So,
Yeah, or you strip the dang head off because you can't get the dang thing out of there.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Shock bolts, upper and lower shock bolts. The lower is not, it's always got tension on it, but the upper shock bolt, red Loctite. I always
Yeah.
put red Loctite on them, and then make sure you torque it. Don't just use a ratchet, tighten it down, because
So we always grease the bikes before they leave here, the linkage. That is something that needs looked at every now and then,
yeah.
before it goes bad.
You got an hour meter on it, I'd say especially if it's a motor race, every 10 hours I would.
Yeah, because if you'll keep them greased, they'll last forever.
It really, yeah.
So they make fun of me when bikes get traded in. The first thing I do, I walk up and I do that, and then as soon as I find out that didn't shake, I find out this shook. So because there's no, the bearings for the swing arm,
Yeah.
and then the next thing I do is I go like that and see how much plays in the rest of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes that'll fool you because it'll be so rusty there is none.
Yeah. And like I said, we're just going over this just so, nothing's worse than showing up to a race. I don't care if the race is 10 minutes down the road, it still sucks you,
Yeah.
Well, it still costs money to go to
Exactly.
and do it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want anything to be wrong. when I
Right,
get there.
exactly.
But you can figure that stuff out real quick, it's like, oh, that won't even move, or it does move too much, it goes clunk clunk, or side to side.
And don't figure that out the morning before you're getting ready to start too. So.
Yeah, because you're probably gonna call Taylor and she's gonna say, well, I ain't even at the shop.
Yeah. But, yeah, that and, I don't know, we'll take I don't know, I think me and Steve and you all do this, but we'll take a new bike and basically take it down to the engine, take everything off of it.
Yeah.
And go through every bolt and make sure every bolt's got, like you said, either
Loctite.
anti-seize, Loctite, or assembly lube on it. But if you're gonna go that far, take the time, pull your swing arm bolt, because when those seize in there, then you gotta take an air hammer and drive it out of your frame, and chances are you're gonna mess something up. So, I know it's a lot of work in the beginning, but it's so much easier to do now with the new, when your bikes are fresh. But
On these 4-strokes, and it can be a 2-stroke too, another quick check on any of these, the dang spark plug caps can start pushing themselves back off.
yeah, we had a bike that was a race bike that was traded in here. That the spark plug cap had never been out, and it was rusted. There was so much rust in there from the spark plug, and then so just that's another thing. Put dielectric grease on your spark plug boot, and you put it back down, and
That's what I always do.
it'll help keep the water out. But the good thing about new 4-strokes is you don't really have to do a whole lot with the valves like you used to.
Yeah,
But-
every time you rode it.
Yeah, yeah.
So the front wheel would be just like the back, as far as axle and grease and all the same, except for when you tighten that one.
Yeah. So everybody's got a different way of how they want to put a front wheel on, but like I said, we're going to take this off. You'll take this off first, then you loosen your pinch bolts, take your axle out, do what you're going to do. But when it's time to go back together, do the same thing on the front wheel as you did the back. Pack those seals full of grease. Take your seal out of your bearings, pack those full of grease. Light coat of grease on your axle, slide it in, and then get it all the way in, and then snug that up as best you can, because if you look here, this axle recessed a little bit inside this 4-plug. So, I mean, you could, if you put this in and it was, say it was flush or just out just a little bit, yeah, you can still tighten everything back up, but it's not pulled tight against that wheel. So, when you wreck, how many times have you had your front wheel go this way and your front fender's going straight? And so if you make sure that's pulled all the way through, it helps. But pull that through, tighten that up, snug these two down, torque your nut all the way. Then I loosen these again, and then this side's loose as well. And I'll take the front wheel and I'll spin it backwards and then grab the front brake, and that'll set everything back straight. And then another thing, if you take your hands like this and pull it down, which I do both of these things, but that just reassures that everything's set straight. And then it's important to torque these.
Yeah, don't over torque.
Don't over torque them, but there's a few things. I mean, there's a lot of things you can get away with not going by the book. But
And that goes with the whole triple clamp system.
exactly, yeah, everything flows together. So keep these torqued. I think this is 17 newton meters up top and 12 newton meters on the bottom. But if you keep this stuff torqued, chances are when you wreck, it ain't gonna go unless you wreck real hard. But
And the other reason he's telling you about that bottom lug, if you got that thing jammed in or jammed out, the suspension won't work. It does not work.
yeah, it'll feel harsh as can be. And like we had a bike back there yesterday that it was horrible. Everything was sitting so sideways that the bike didn't even want to go up and down. But another thing, he'd wrecked, and if you keep this stuff torqued, it's not near as big of an issue.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I highly recommend you do every time you ride it is bleed your forks. There's just a little flat blade head up here. I'm sure you probably already do it, but it's that'll change the way the bike feels completely.
I keep a notebook on my bikes, and because I got too dang many, but write down the hours and the date and what I did, and what race I did, dust race, mud race, just kind of keep myself up to date, because sometimes you just forget, and then next thing you know, your bearings are shot and the bike needs rebuilt, and there you are, you're done.
Yeah, we need to go back over all the bearings on mine then. It's already got 40 hours on it, so
Yeah,
we need to go over.
it's a lot of work. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, the speed level y'all are at, then that's what makes a difference.
Yeah. Me and Jim Bob trail ride all year on the same
when
bike.
we show up and we
Yeah, you don't even gotta wash
this.
this.
Huh? Yeah.
You see, you rolled it in here dirty.
I did. My bikes aren't ever dirty, but that one has.
Oh.
Yeah.
Another thing that I can't stress enough, I guess, is put Loctite on your front brake caliper, because if those bolts back out, which happens, they'll get tangled up in your front wheel and you're gonna get hurt. So
Yeah, and that's something I always think about. The speed that you're going, one little screw up like that could really hurt you.
yeah,
It ain't about DNF at that point. It's about just
Your safety.
hurting you.
yeah. So, and then same thing on your banjo bolts here. Just take your wrench when you're checking everything and check that, and then you can check it up here and then check your clutch, because these can come loose too. The bolt that goes in there, then you lose your clutch and lose your pressure in your clutch, and then it's annoying for the next 2 hours or whatever you're racing. So,
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets their own little habits, but I mean, mine is, as soon as it's up on a stand, I grab the shifter. I mean, because I'm right there at it. Like, well, the damn shifters, they always seem to want to come loose.
yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take, it's just an 8mm.
And
I mean, I feel like some of the stuff we're telling you, I'm sure you know, or you raced your whole lives,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's nice to rehear it.
Then the brake pedals, the bearings, and them things.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bearing inside your brake pedal, so when you got it all taken apart, or when you're going through it, you may put some grease in there too.
I break mine off so fast they just stay new.
They just stay new. I pretty much, after I clean my bike up, I soak the chain with WD just to wash the water out, and then I go around with my foot pegs and my levers and anything that moves and just spray some kind of penetrant on it,
Yeah,
just to kind of clean the water out of it.
yeah. I do all that, and you can take it when you get done washing it. Take a leaf blower or take your air compressor,
Yeah.
and just try to blow all the water off of it, and then spray it down. But you would be amazed at how much longer a bike will look better if you put penetrating oil on everything, or WD-40. And another thing I was going to say, something that you don't always think about, but your engine mount bolts, they can come loose too, so I would Loctite them and torque them.
That does come with.
The subframe bolt's still the same on that? Same as the engine bolt?
Subframe bolts need Loctite 100%. Yeah. Which the older Shercos have the long bolt that went through and you put the nut on, but these newer ones have bolts, a bolt on this side and this side for the top of the subframe, and then the same on the bottom. But and if it use a paint marker if you want, or if it make you feel better, then you can line everything up and you'll know, hey, if something's moved, I can see it. Another thing, if you're going to go through the time to go through your bike, which I think we all agree we should, but when everything's new, just put some grease in your steering stem, because it doesn't take long for that to get notchy. And there's a rubber O-ring in there that goes underneath this dust seal, but you can still get dirt and water and stuff up in there. Yeah.
And the obvious, check your antifreeze.
Yeah.
Not while it's hot.
Just, yeah, before you get on the bike, check it.
Yeah, check your antifreeze before you leave the house.
And then when you start the bike for the first time, like the morning of a race or whatever, start it, don't give it any throttle, and let it warm up until you can take the back side of your hand and put it on this radiator right here, or until your fan kicks on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure y'all have heard the
We don't want cold season.
Yeah, I don't. You know, in the mornings, do y'all like somebody just to shake the shit out of you first thing?
Those little 50s.
Yeah.
The little AMs, the micros, right by your camper window.
Yeah, never fails. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it took them a little bit to get primed up to get off the couch this morning, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you should just went in there and just held them wide open.
But what they do is they're way smarter. These are way smarter than they used to be or whatever. But it's got air intake, air temperature sensors, and whatever. Everything's compensating for what it feels like outside or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's going to change every time you ride the bike, and it'll essentially remap itself. It doesn't really remap itself, but it resets the parameters inside the ECU. So
Yeah.
when you let it sit there and get warm, it's taken into consideration. Oh, it's 40 degrees today. When last time I raced it was 90. You know, so.
The very first Shercos we raced was at the Michigan NEPG, and trying to get to the line, and it's just like they kept dying, wouldn't idle.
Yeah.
And finally, they,
Come out of it.
yeah.
Another thing there's a 10 millimeter nut that holds your power wire to your starter. That way you pull all that dirty stuff, followed by the clean fluid going in.
Well, the reason he's going over all this with you isn't just for educational, but it is educational. The real reason is because right here, check this out. This is what your boys are going to be riding this year.
Ooh. Oh, 4 of them? 3? Sweet. Didn't know we were getting any of these.
That's why we were kind of going over the new model, so that way you got an idea on it. But it was hard for me to keep my mouth shut because I was like, I don't know they're getting new box.
Sweet.